Well, we're talking about the vocabulary in Unit 5 on page 129 in Hansen and Quinn. Let's take a look at the verbs first. Oh, but before we do that, there's something we forgot in our video about the articular infinitive, about the gerund. We forgot to tell you how to negate them. And the negative of a gerund is not u but me. So tablopsi, for example, that's the aorist infinitive of the verb blopto, that means harm. Tablopsi means harming, okay? Harming animals is cruel, okay? That harming. And tameblopsi is going to be not harming friends is a good thing, okay? So let's remember that one. All right, moving back onto the list of vocabulary words. Let's talk about the new verbs in this lesson. The first one is that one that we just looked at, the verb blopto, and its principal parts. The underlying root there is blab, B-L-A-B, okay, which means harm. There's a noun, blabe, as I mentioned the other day. So we got blopto, blopso, eblapsa, beblafa. You've got a perfect with an aspirated, final aspirated consonant. The B has become a phi. Beblamai, there's your perfect passive. Eblabain or eblafain. It has both an aorist passive with and without the theta. Nothing complicated about what it means. There's also the verb archo, which means two things, at least at the moment. It's going to mean a third thing once we get to lesson 7 rather. It means rule or command. It also means begin, and that's because the underlying meaning of this verb is to be first. Okay, so the person who's first is in charge and rules, but also is also the person who begins. The most important thing about it is that it governs a direct object in the genitive case, because it did mean be first. So it meant be first of a group, right? Mm-hmm. And then that explains why you begin with a genitive object. Okay, so it originally made sense. It doesn't anymore. The principal parts are pretty straightforward. Archo, arxo, erxa, ercha with an aspirated final consonant. It's already aspirated. Ergmai is your perfect passive, and erchtein for the aorist passive with a theta eta. Now we can learn all the principal parts because we've had them all, okay? So it's time to get them under control. There are two more verbs in this lesson. There's peitho, which means persuade. Peitho, peso, epesa. The theta becomes a sigma when it's followed by an S. So it's pesa, peitho, peso, epesa. Pepeka, there's no theta or sigma. Pepesmai, it comes back, and epesthein. Very, very common verb in Greek. Greeks are really interested in and obsessed even with the notion of persuasion, an important concept in the society. And the last one is the verb prato, which has a long alpha, okay? Prato, the underlying root here is prag, P-R-A-G, and this is what we have in words like pragmatic and practical. The gamma becomes a kappa before a T, so that's why it's prac with a K or a C in English in those other places. So this verb is translated as do or fare, F-A-R-E. Fare is, I don't think, a living word in normal English. We do have it in phrases like seafaring, and the original meaning of this verb means to traverse the sea. Actually, it means to succeed in crossing over watery space. Okay, that's the original meaning. It means that in some very old texts. Okay, but it gets generalized into something like do or anything. The reason that people want you to learn the meaning fare is that if you use it with an adverb like eu, eu, there's the circumflex over the u, which means well, you can say eu prato, means I'm doing well, I'm faring well, okay? I'm still not convinced that that's a thing that you actually say, but that's the excuse. All right, so the principal parts are based on the gamma and ending of the root proto is weird. There's no gamma there, but that's what happens when you add the original yo suffix to make verbs. In Attic Greek, you have proto. In regular Greek, it's proso. And then it's proxo with a xi, epraxa, pepracha, so you've aspirated the gamma to a chi, as we've seen in other cases, or pepraga without the aspiration. When you have two, okay, they change in function. One's transitive, pepracha, and the other's intransitive, pepraga. That's the meaning fair is intransitive, okay?
Which means it takes a direct object.
Yes, exactly. If it's transitive, it's do something to somebody, okay? It even can take, well, we'll talk about that some other time. And then there's pepragmai, the perfect passive. I was done wrong. Okay, that kind of do in the passive. And eprachthein, the aorist passive form. All right. Those are the verbs in this lesson. Let's talk about some of the nouns and adjectives. We get the important noun in Greek, doxa, whose meanings are complex. Doxa, the genitive is doxes. That's a short alpha noun, like a thalata type noun. It's feminine, and it means, the book tells you it means expectation, belief, reputation, and glory. So it really means, in the first meaning that here is expectation or belief, is it means opinion, as opposed to knowledge. Okay, it means things that people think or that are apparently true, but not necessarily. Okay, so it's a non-absolute kind of knowledge. But it also, the older meaning of this word is glory and fame. Okay, and good reputation. We get the noun for death in Greek, thanatos, which I think it survives in English in the name of a famous poem that kids used to memorize in school, Thanatopsis. You ever learned this one? Mm-hmm. No? Okay, anyhow, can't remember who wrote this, but there aren't many cognates of this word, but it gives us, more importantly, it gives us the noun death, but more importantly, the two-termination adjective athanatos. As you know, Greeks believed that, and called their gods the immortal ones. So athanatos can mean a divinity just by itself, or hoi athanatoi can mean the collection of divinities. But it's an adjective that doesn't have a separate feminine gender. Okay, that means immortal. But the one that looks masculine is both masculine and feminine. The one that looks neuter is neuter. Okay. There's another adjective that immediately after it, hieros, hieron, means holy or sacred. Okay, it's a, there's a lot of sacred things in daily life in Greek. There isn't the kind of rigorous distinction that we make between what's sacred and what's profane. Everything is sacred in the right context in Greek daily life. But the important thing about this adjective is that it governs a complement in the genitive case as opposed to the dative. So we're used to saying it's sacred to me, or it's sacred to a particular god, okay? And you would think that you would have a dative, but in Greek you use a genitive for that case. So you put the god to whom something is sacred in the genitive's case, not in the dative. We get also there are some interesting nouns here. There's the noun hippos, okay? It's got two P's in it. This is the Indo-European word for horse. If you know Latin, it's the same word as Latin equus. It's got two P's because people like their horses. It's like the two P's in puppy or daddy, or those kinds of doubling of consonants that expresses affection for something. And notice that it's like theos, okay? It can be of either masculine or feminine gender. So you have to watch, okay? Sometimes it means a horse of no particular gender. Sometimes it means a stallion. And sometimes it means a mare. You remember our triangle with the genders, okay? So hawk can be either masculine or feminine, actually, just a horse. And then you can use the two genders to distinguish between them. There are some other nouns. There's one that there's the word for stone, lithos, kindunos, that means danger, has no cognates in English. There are the adjectives makros, which means large or long, and mikros, which means small or short, okay? As in macroeconomics and microeconomics, we have a lot of compounds of those in English. Here's there are two last things I want to make remarks about. One is the adjective derived from the noun polemos. We have the noun polemos, polemu, ha, that means war. You already know that. But this lesson teaches you the adjective polemios, polemia, polemion. You have an alpha there because of the iota before the gender, before the grammatical ending. And the book translates it hostile, or it means warlike, okay, derived from an adjective derived from the noun for war. But it occurs more often than not with a nominative or a plural article in front of it. It doesn't have to be nominative, as in hoi polemioi. And this is a gotcha. It looks like that means the hostile ones, okay? And according to the use of the article that we learned a few in the video about the new uses of the article, that's what it should mean, but it doesn't, okay? What it means is the collection of people who are hostile to you. In other words, the enemy in the singular, okay? It's a collective noun like the noun people in English, okay? And you know, it's not that it grammatically governs a singular verb, but it does mean a single collection of many enemies, okay? Not the hostile ones, all right? You're going to see the book loves that expression and likes to catch you up on it. All right, last thing is protos, the adjective protos, which has lots of derivatives in English, as in protozoan and prototype and all those things. Protos, prote, proton, it can be, has three genders. And one of the things that's curious and important about it is that it often is used in the predicate in Greek without an article in front of it. So the standard example of it is in the expression protos ephe. Ephe is the word for he, she, or it said, okay? So that looks like it means he first said, or because it's masculine, protos ephe. But what it actually means is he was the first to speak. Okay? He spoke first is another way of doing it. There you can see that it goes in the predicate. But this is a common construction with protos and a few other adjectives, that it goes in the predicate of the sentence instead of in the subject as it when it modifies the subject. All right? I think that's it.
Hi.
Bye-bye.